Yes. And actually, before I even get into it, let me introduce myself. My name is Daina Demba Mutondo, and I'm going to be your moderator for this session. I'm originally from Chad, and I am based in South Africa. I work for an organization called the African Peer Review Mechanism, but today I'll be speaking and moderating on my own behalf in my own capacity. So I would like to welcome once again all of you, colleagues and friends. And I would like also to thank you, the platform being in Africa, for hosting this important webinar and discussion. And I really look forward to the discussion, because I think that today is really going to be about reflecting about who we are as Africans, and looking at the languages, the wealth of languages that we have on the continent. So I would like to go on and introduce our speakers. I will start with our guest speaker, which is Professor Sunday Ojo. He is the Executive Director at Inclusive African Indigenous Language Technology. I would also like to introduce Mimi Kalinda, who's the Group CEO and co-founder at African Communication Media Group. Then I also would like to welcome Andrew Sibagnoni, who is the owner and the managing director for Inala Media. And last but not least, I would like to introduce Nobodo Favor Chisimbi, who's a medical undergraduate, a writer, editor, language teacher, and translator. Welcome to all of you, colleagues and friends. And so for, I would like to just give a few house rules about how the webinar is placed. So I would like to invite all the participants to send their questions and comments in the chat or the Q&A option. And I would like also to let you know that the session is being recorded and streamed on Facebook. All right. So on that note, I would like to call upon our guest speaker, Professor Sunday Ojo, to please give us your opening remarks.
Would you put on my PowerPoint, or you want me to do it here?
All right, if you have a PowerPoint, you can definitely share it with us.
I can just speak to it.
Okay, that's perfect, Professor. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I have been asked to speak on, to answer the question, why should we preserve and promote African languages, and how can we do it?
Professor, apologies.
Yes.
Professor, would you mind switching on your camera?
Just a moment.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
You want to switch on what?
Your camera.
All right. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
enough.
no.
Oh, no, they said you have, I cannot start my video because you have stopped it. You have muted me.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Okay, we'll just ask our colleagues who's...
Okay, I think it's done now.
It's done now. Okay, perfect.
Start my video. No, say I cannot.
Is it?
Please, whoever is coordinating to unmute me, my video.
Yeah, the video, okay.
Or can you see me now? Oh, it's on now. Can you see me?
Yes, we can see you, Prof. Thank you so
great.
much.
Okay, thank you. And to answer the question, why should we preserve and promote African languages? Oh, okay. Oh, sorry, just a moment. So are you projecting it for me? Wanja? Hello?
Yes, we're projecting, Prof.
Are you projecting for me?
Yes, we're projecting.
PowerPoint.
It is on, Prof. We can see it.
I can see it.
Yes,
So,
we can see it on our side.
you'll be moving it for me. Go to the next slide. Go to the next slide. Hello?
Yes, Prof. Which one?
You are controlling it.
Yes.
I can't control from here.
Yes, we've moved, Prof. Which page do you want us to go to?
I said you have displayed the PowerPoint. I cannot control it from here.
Yes, we're projecting.
So yeah, you have to be controlling it, moving from one slide to the other.
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you just move to the next slide?
Yes.
It's not coming. I can't see it.
We're on the one on African languages.
Yes. I just see the first slide. You have to move to the next one.
Are we there now?
Or do you want me to share it from here? If you can allow me to share, then I control it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Please go ahead.
Pardon me?
Please go ahead. You can speak to it as well.
Can I? You mean I cannot? No. You are saying you are controlling it. Okay, just a moment. All right. That's the agenda. We'll look at what African languages. What does it mean to us having such rich linguistic culture? Why should African languages be preserved and promoted? How can we go about it? What future? You can see how rich we are linguistically. We're a coalition of a multilingual, multi-ethnic continent with rich diversity, indigenous languages and cultures. We have well over 2,000 distinct ethnic groups and languages over our 54 nations. Though we are 14.5% of world population, we share 30.2% of world languages, which is 7,000 plus. However, out of these 7,000 and over languages, 10 of them dominate 80% of the content of the internet. None of these is an African language. There is an anthropological relationship between language and culture. What does a language mean to us? They are vehicles of our culture, our collective memory and values. They are essential components of our identities, of our Africanness. They are building blocks of our African diversity and living heritage. They constitute windows to our souls as African people groups, our unique indigenous knowledge systems, our cultural identities. They are the reservoirs in which are stored our rich cultural wealth, our philosophies of life, our wisdom imparting, stories and folklores, our medical practice, indigenous medical practices, and so on and so forth. They also mean to us, by their lyrical and poetic nature, they carry the weights of our rich cultural history with ease. These languages of Africa, they have capacity to reconcile our ideas and our values from diverse cultural, socio-economic, religious, and professional backgrounds. Also, our languages, They are key contributors to dialogue, to reconciliation, to tolerance and peace, and consequently, they matter in our social transformation and economic development. What do they mean to us? Now, bear in mind, this rich storage or reservoir that our language constitutes in holding our cultural wealth, any death of any of these languages is like a burnt library. To those who are in academics, you know what it means to wake up one day, your library is ablaze. But in this case, we are talking of library of cultural heritage, embodiment of our people. It's going to constitute a loss with socio-psychological effects of losing our identity and harboring a socio-cultural inferiority complex among nations. This will be accompanied by we feeling as second-class citizens of the world. Of course, we'll be living with second fiddle playing mentality. Why should we preserve and promote our languages? I continue. Are you all aware about globalization? With the advent of globalization agenda, the rate of language endangerment and disappearance has increased because the language of globalization is the powerful dominating the weak. Over 50% of 7,000 plus odd spoken languages of the world have been projected to be disappearing in the near future. Already we are 231, already have disappeared, and 37 of them are from sub-Saharan Africa. Again, the reason why we should preserve and promote our languages, these languages are being endangered, for various factors. This is ongoing. Fear and fear people are claiming ownership of these languages. Our youth are in diaspora, where they don't speak our languages. Our languages are not on the internet. There are fear and fear activities. We don't use our language in teaching. We don't do it in conventional day-to-day activities. Now, we need to preserve this. We need to promote it. The various policies of our government adopting some non-inclusive language policies, which make that any language, not official language, is not supported by government, it's not taught in school, you initiate anything, it will not have financial support from government. Also, there is this mental slavery that we are carrying around. We feel prestigious be speaking English in our Anglophone countries, French in our Francophone country, and this is more and more pushing our African languages to an oblivion. Also, our African languages lack what we call digital feasibility. The implications of this are many. They are suffering from digital language exclusion when it comes to the internet. Then digital information inequality in the internet again. We do play second fiddle. Of late, I got to know that the language services provisioning constitutes over 50 billion market. But when I look at the statistics, Africa is taking a party share of less than 0.5%. Other people trade in our languages because we do not look in this direction. Thus, we have been disadvantaged socioeconomically, exploiting our heritage. The inadequate global feasibility of our African indigenous knowledge is as a result of lack of digital feasibility of African languages. Then the implication of this, we are unable to advance our indigenous knowledge on the cyberspace in the global knowledge arena. And that is why we are more of knowledge consumers rather than knowledge producers compared with other parts of the world. For all these reasons, you can see the need for us to promote and preserve our African languages. How can we go about it? There need to have some preamble to this. You've heard the story or the slogan of Fourth Industrial Revolution. It's real. It's been driven by artificial intelligence, which is powered by ICTs. It presents a semblance of survival for the fittest in the globalized world. It's known that any human system, such as linguistics and cultural heritage systems, that does not respond appropriately to these changing dynamics occasioned by 4IR, it gets endangered and can eventually go into extinction. African languages face this unique challenge. How do we adapt to the new reality? UNESCO observed that languages not on the digital space will disappear. Our African languages, which is grossly under-resourced in terms of what it takes to adequately get our language into cyberspace and hence become endangered with the possibility of disappearance in the near future. How can we go about it? I go further. Again, I'm quoting UNESCO that advocates that the linguistic diversity of world languages should be safeguarded. And multilingualism, which is the heritage of Africa in particular, in the cyberspace, should be promoted through effective application of ICT. UNESCO further has declared the 2020s as the decade of indigenous languages. We need to take advantage of this opportunity. Our African Union made a charge when launching the ACALAN, an Academy for African Languages, then there in Bali, the charge that we Africans and no one else have the responsibility to render our African languages not only a wider visibility, but also an academic and scientific status through sound computational linguistic research. This charge needs to be taken up, particularly by those in the academic sector, working closely with the industry, of course, with the government. Now, in responding to this charge of the African Union and the advocacy of UNESCO, we need to take cognizance of that advocacy and take advantage of the digital opportunities offered by ICT. We need to exploit the advances in the human language technologies to provide adequate digital feasibility to our language and cultural heritage. We need to advance our indigenous mathematics, science, engineering, and technology of our linguistic and cultural heritage in the global knowledge space so that we cease to be knowledge consumers without producing adequately given our population size. Now, we can get this done through the following: collaborative engagement among stakeholders. Our populace, we need to shed ourselves of the mental and cultural decolonization. We need decolonization mentally and also culturally. We should take pride in what is indigenous to us rather than reveling in foreign imported ideas or knowledge. Also, the political leadership needs commitment to preserving and promoting our African languages rather than through non-inclusive language policies, treating our rich multilingualism and diversity as an aberration, rather than rich resource that we need to exploit for our socio-economic development. The academia has a role to play, particularly taking on the charge by the AU to lead in research and innovation and advancing our language and culture, math, science, engineering, and technology on the global knowledge space. The industry has a role to play, commitment to doing business with our African languages through appropriate African language services provisioning. I've told you, we currently share only less than 0.5% of over $50 billion market for language services provisioning. We need to take advantage of our youth demographic dividend by creating a critical mass of well-capacitated, well-empowered African youths with research, innovation, and entrepreneurial skills in appropriate African languages, technology, and services provisioning. What future? I have to take a recourse to a vision of one of our founding fathers. The late President Kwame Nkrumah in Addis Ababa in 1963 envisioned as follows. He said, we shall accumulate machinery and establish steelworks, iron foundries, and factories. We shall link the various states of our continent with communication. We shall stone the world with our hydroelectric power. We shall drain marshes and swamps, clear infested areas, feed the undernourished, and rid our people of parasites and diseases. It is within the possibility of the advances in science and technology, which you have many Africans in the arena excelling, to make even Sahara bloom into a vast field with abundant vegetation for agricultural and industrial development. This was envisioned as far back as 1963 by late President of Ghana. Let us exploit our rich linguistic and cultural heritage in the pursuit of this our forefathers' vision. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor. This was very enriching. Actually, it was quite eye-opening. I myself have learned quite a lot. Thank you so much for also highlighting the ways we could go about, the ways we could go about, promoting and preserving our African languages. I just want to especially highlight a few points that you have mentioned. The fact that you have compared the African languages to a reservoir, I think it's really summarized well what the languages should represent for us. It is a wealth of knowledge. And hello? Okay, can you hear me? Okay, let me just carry on. I think someone's mic might be off, might be switched on. All right, so the African languages, you've highlighted them as reservoirs, and indeed they are a reservoir of knowledge. It is a wealth of knowledge and of information. And I would also like to highlight when you mentioned that the death of languages, African languages, could be compared as a burnt library. And the fact that you've also highlighted a few causes like globalization. Just as an example, I would like also to use myself as an example that like I mentioned in my introduction, that I am from Chad, but myself and many of other young people on the continent would probably relate to that, is that you are from a country and you end up being raised in a different country, and these colleagues. Yes, so I was just highlighting the pertinent points that Professor Ojo has spoken upon, and just highlighting the issue that globalization comes with in terms of like contributing to the loss of our African languages. Okay. Thank you. All right. So another point that I would like to highlight from the presentation that Prof has delivered, which I found quite interesting, is that talking about the way we are more of consumers than producers, and how the fourth industrial revolution is actually really impacting on the way on the way things are moving forward, and on the way languages that are failing to adapt or to explore, to get into exploring the fourth industrial revolution and technologies that come with it. Those languages actually are at risk of disappearing. And lastly, just to conclude on the summary, is that it is very important to note what the UNESCO and the African Union and other organizations have done, but I think we should also ask ourselves as individuals, what can we do on an individual level to make sure that we can carry on the mandate and the flag when it comes to promoting and preserving our languages. I think we will take maybe just one or two questions from the floor based on Professor Ojo's presentation before we move forward. Any questions, colleagues? Okay.
Hello,
Let me
can I
just
ask
see
questions?
from the chat. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yes. Definitely. Yes. You can introduce yourself and ask your question, please.
Aquí pegando mi Madagascar. Pero ustedes qué van a saber, concha tu madre? ¿Ah? ¿Qué van a saber?
Can you mute it? Can you mute everyone except me? No.
Yes. Mwanja, would you please help? Thank you.
So I'm really happy that Professor Sunday Ojo, our brother Professor Sunday Ojo, gave a very, very good lecture. He's also setting up Institute on Indigenous Knowledge and Language, where I am also supporting him. And I'm originally from Ethiopia, but the ancient time, Ethiopia, Africa, ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, all these were one name, one place. But what we need to know also is that in this ancient time, we created our own alphabet. We have our own calendar. What don't we have in Africa? We have so many knowledge. We have a rich knowledge heritage, rich spiritual heritage, and also on our language side, also we have
Me quieren agitar, me incitan a gritar.
Yeah, we have.
Adentro hay un volcán que
Can you
pronto
hear
va a
me?
estallar.
Can you hear?
Go ahead, please go ahead. I think there's
Yes.
a glitch that's being sorted out. Thank you. You can go ahead.
Okay. No, what I'm saying is that although the number of languages is over nearly 2,000, they are voices. The root language of Africa are not many. The variations are in terms of sound variations. So what we need to do is really identify the root languages. Also, also see if we could use our own alphabet to describe them, to explain them, not use the Latin and Roman, all these things, although we may still use it. But I think we should Africanize at the same time, go really do, there's another brother called Kwesi Pra, Professor Kwesi Pra. He has done a lot of studies on the languages. What we need to do is, if there is a way we could have a strong commitment to see if we could generate the knowledge, put it even in the school and the curriculum system in Africa, and eventually Pan-Africanize it by making sure that we speak also our own language. Not whenever we have the Africa Union, you know which languages are used: French, English, Arabic, Portuguese. Kiswahili is said to be the African language. At least formally, AU has accepted it, but nothing has happened. So why do we still use colonial languages? We have not decolonized our decolonization. So let's try to digitalize. Everything is fine, but also when we digitalize it, to be nice, we also Africanize it. By Africanization, I mean the rich knowledge that we have. For example, the Chinese, others, they have their own alphabets and so on. The Indians, everybody has their own. The Arabs, they have. We Africans also have our own. Why not use our alphabet? I think on that on the calendar, many things we can go ahead and really restart doing it and get our young, you Diana, and people like the younger generation. We really need to engage you so well so that you can actually work together and eventually come out with some very good practical solutions that actually makes Africa fully proud and very independent and with dignity. I think that's what we need to do. Let's use a language to do that. And we have it. All we don't know is that we don't know how to use it. Because we are still colonized, we prefer to speak French than speak our own language. I was in Cameroon and I say to the people, I don't want to say merci beaucoup. I want to say it in your language. Can I say hello? I want to thank you. They, the ladies that were, treating us, they were embarrassed because they don't know their own local language. Can you imagine? This is that bad. Our situation is really not nice. So we need to really transform ourselves. I think that's very important we do. Thank you very much. Okay, all right.
Thank you so much. That was actually a really good input, and you've highlighted the issue, or rather the question of the alphabet. And many of our African languages actually, in Ethiopia, it is a beautiful thing because Ethiopia has its own alphabet. But then for other countries, you will notice that there isn't necessarily an alphabet per se, and the history is not written. The culture is not to be writing. It's not a written culture. It's not a written. Unfortunately, people do not write when they tell stories, like when it comes to storytelling. And I think that also adds on to the issue of losing our languages and not speaking our home tongues. Thank you so much for that. I will take one more question from the floor, the virtual floor, and before we move forward, thank you.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you please introduce yourself and also?
My name is Abdul Salam, and I'm calling from Tuskegee in Alabama, in the heart of the empire, I guess. Thank you, Professor Ojo, for your wonderful remarks and your contribution. But I would like to just highlight one important thing that you might need to consider with the presentation. There's been a lot of development in African languages. In 1974, there was a UNESCO conference on that decided on the race of the ancient Egyptians and their relationship to the African continent. And in that conference, Sheikh Anta Diop and Théophile Obenga tried to deal with the issue of the relationship between ancient Egyptian language and modern African languages. And in there, it was concluded that certain assumptions about ancient Egyptian language, like is a Semitic language, is not correct. And in there, as a result of that conference, there's been a new language, African language family that was designed by Théophile Obenga. And I think we need to be cognizant of that development. And also, as a result of that, there's been 2 books. Unfortunately, these books are in French, so they're not accessible to scholars in English. One is by Sheikh Anta Diop. The title, maybe briefly in English, would be Common Origin of Ancient Egyptian Language and African Languages. And with respect to the history of scripts, Africa is the home of, is the cradle of all the scripts in the world, including Chinese language. The Latin script and all the script that is used came by way of ancient Egypt. What I'm saying is nothing controversial. All of these things have been written, but unfortunately, we hear about a lot of things that is happening in Europe, but a lot of things that is developed by African scholars are not promoted and people don't know about them. So I think it's incumbent on us to know what the African scripts are. We have written, most African languages have written scripts, and those written scripts are related to ancient Egyptian script. To give you an example of them, in Nigeria, we have Nsibidi, and Cameroon, they have Bamoun. In Liberia and Sierra Leone, they have Vai, the Vai script. All of this has been documented in the research of Théophile Obenga, his 1973 book. So when we talk about the relationship between ancient Egyptian and African languages, we're not just talking in abstract terms. Moving forward, if we're really interested in African languages and in developing them, we also must be cognizant of knowing the history of these languages, and so that we can proceed on the right path and then we don't get lost. Because that was how, when we talk about language diversity, actually, there's more cultural unity between African languages than diversity. And that was what the gentleman from Ethiopia was trying to let us know. The ancient Egyptian has a lot of libraries of information, and my research in trying to decide, compare the ancient Egyptian with Yoruba has yielded a lot of results. So once we know the roots, which is ancient Egyptian is the oldest African language that has a lot of data, it will proceed from that, and we've already have the works of Sheikh Anta Diop, Théophile Obenga, and other scholars to guide us. And then I think we'll be proceeding in the right path. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abdul. That was very enlightening. Thank you for the pointer about the written scripts in Africa and so on. Well, this would be it for the opening remarks. And Prof. Ojo, do you have anything to add before we move forward?
Well, thanks for the various comments and contributions, my colleague, Professor Mamo and Dr. Abdul. You know, all they have said are quite valid, very complementary to all what we have been saying. Our inability to advance our own languages, as the various implications that I mentioned, but most importantly, it will be literally impossible for us to correctly and adequately advance our indigenous knowledge in the global knowledge space if we do not do something about advancing our languages, preserving and promoting them through effective human language technology development. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. That was really good. Now I'm going to invite all of us to move with the rest of the program. Next on the program, we have our panelists. The panel discussion is going to take place, Ms. Mimi Kalinda, who's the group CEO and co-founder at Africa Communication Media Group, will be taking the floor, and the topic on which she's going to be presenting is how can African languages be preserved and promoted through current African narrative spaces. Ms. Kalinda, you have about 5 minutes and you have the floor. Thank you so much. Do we have Ms. Kalinda on the line?
Mimi, please unmute your mic and your camera, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, hello everybody, good evening. Unfortunately, I'm not able to turn on my video. I don't know what's going on. I've tried it, but it's not letting me for some reason. Let me go ahead and speak to this. So thanks for having me, first of all, and thank you to the previous speakers for their very insightful presentations. Learned a lot myself. I like to think of myself as a narrative champion and advocate, an activist, and so the issues of language are very dear to me. Being a continent that speaks over 2,000 or more languages, I think one of there are pros and cons that have been advanced as to why we need to either really reinforce the promotion of and preservation of our languages, but also there's been a lot of arguments against, and it really surprises me, some of these arguments, when we talk about, specific to education. So when we talk about the cost of having to, kind of roll out an education curriculum that speaks to the needs of our populations in terms of preserving languages. I think for me, that is an argument that is absolutely, is a non-starter, because when you look at the benefits versus, and there's been numerous cost analysis that have been done before, but when you look at the benefits that would come with that sort of education, I think the benefits far outweigh any negatives in terms of costs. I think that from an education point of view in particular, there's also been research that's shown that when children are taught in their mother language, in their native language, the absorption of the content and the chances that they have to succeed is far higher than when they start to, when they're taught in a language that is perhaps foreign to them or is not their mother language. So when we talk about our youth dividend, for example, and we talk about having this youth population that, in my view, can either end up being a real asset to this continent or become a huge liability on all of us, not just in Africa, but on the rest of the world, then empowering this youth to really be able to self-actualize and to contribute to all of our futures is paramount. And so if we can't invest in them at the very basic level of language, of the language in which they're taught, I think we are fighting a losing battle. I also would like to point to the fact that, you know, from South Korea through to Japan, China, Russia, all of Europe, North America, the school's language of instruction is the children's mother tongue. So why is that not so in Africa? It really doesn't make any logical sense at all. You know, I remember, you know, first spending some time in Senegal a while back, and, you know, having, not only is the curriculum, you know, things like, I mean, we could have a whole conversation about things like, you know, our history, you know, representation in the curriculum, etc. But language, you know, children in Senegal learning in French and not learning anything in Wolof, and in some cases, you know, Wolof not even being offered as a second language, I think is preposterous, and it's something that we should be really pushing our stakeholders, both in private sector, because when we start talking about cost, like I've mentioned before, there's an investment that goes into this. So everything from having the right teachers in the classroom to actually having the materials that have been translated into our indigenous languages. So, you know, pushing our private sector to be able to come to the table with those sorts of investments, and then also pushing our policymakers to really get out of their comfort zones so that we were able to achieve the things that we're talking about. I think that whatever language is used in teaching content subjects, when language is the subject, it must be taught professionally and well. So I think we also need to invest in things like teacher training, which is critical, and make sure that we have the right sorts of teachers in the classroom with our children. So I'm particularly, you know, passionate about the issue of language, and as you've seen, I'm coming to it from the perspective of education. One, because I'm a mother myself, and two, because if we're really talking about shifting a narrative, if we're talking about making sure our youth becomes an asset to this continent and to the world, but yet we're presenting them, well, first of all, we're handicapping them by asking them to learn in a language that is foreign to them, but also we're not presenting them with the opportunities, the materials, the right teachers, and the right context and ecosystem for them to really rise to that challenge. Then I think we're putting ourselves at a huge disadvantage. I think the last thing I'll say is that, you know, language itself doesn't live in isolation. The reason we're pushing for this kind of change mindset shift, really, is so that we, it's all tied to economic growth. Ultimately, everything is tied to, you know, being able to grow this continent to the next level, for us to actualize our potential as a continent. And so when you look at it in that context, it's not just a couple of nice people talking about, you know, we really should be, you know, promoting and preserving our own languages, but it's really about how does promoting our own languages tie back directly to where we will be in terms of our GDPs, in terms of our economic growth, looking back a decade from now. And then, you know, I know that I said that was the last thing I was going to say, but I guess just to add to that, is there are people doing this. There are historians, there are filmmakers, there are, you know,
No, I'm not yet done. You can hear I'm not done.
Specifically in the creative sector, I think that there are, you know, definitely.
When I take it off and put mine, it's going off.
There are a number of groups of people who are really pushing for this preservation and promotion of our own languages, you know, and I want to focus on the creative industries in particular, because I think there are people out there doing it. They just don't have the right resources, the right kind of support. And also we need a mindset shift. So, you know, unfortunately, for a lot of our people would choose a movie, you know, that's been produced perhaps in France with, you know, the sort of quality that comes from that side of the world versus one in Wolof, and the same thing across the continent. So when the, you know, preservation of language has a huge, you know, I think that we have a huge opportunity to support our artists and our creative industries in particular, because when you look at behavior change and mindset shift, there's definitely a link between what these platforms, media, entertainment, music, movies, etc., can do in really starting our children young in, one, valuing our languages, and two, learning them. So thank you very much.
Wow, Mimi, thank you so much for that. That was really, really interesting. I really like the fact that you've spoke about the economic benefits from learning our languages, you know, and also the fact that you've highlighted that it's important to support our creative space, our artists, our movie makers, and so on, because this will the things that will contribute to, you know, promoting our languages, make it more interesting and attractive to the youth, and so on. Thank you so much. So we will be taking all questions at the end of the session, just before we close. So I will just jump into introducing our next speaker, who is called Andre Sibagnoni. He's the owner and managing director of Inala Media, and he will be talking about Ndebele as a language and culture. Thank you so much.
The radio station is called Ikwekwezi. As you have mentioned, I'm Ndebele speaking in South Africa. And Ndebele is divided into two, which is Southern Ndebele, spoken in South Africa, and then Northern Ndebele, spoken in Zimbabwe. But now I just want to focus mainly on the Southern Ndebele, which is my mother tongue. And it's been one of the, it's one of the colorful, when you think of Ndebele people, you think of their arts, their tradition and culture, because we are one of the most colorful nations in South Africa. Of course, we are a very small nation. We are about 2% of the population of more than 50 million people in the country. You can just imagine how difficult it has been for us to maintain and preserve our language. But through our government, when they took power in 1994 from apartheid, they made sure to make that a linguistic right is actually a human right. So they introduced a bill that stated that everyone has got the right to speak his or her language and practice a culture of their own choice. Therefore, what happened afterwards, Amandebele launched a radio station called Ikwekwezi FM. It's a national radio station, and isiNdebele also is one of the official languages in the country. We've got about 11 official languages in South Africa, of which 9 are African indigenous languages. Therefore, the Ikwekwezi FM, or Radio isiNdebele radio station, has been the custodian of the language. And coming from our nation as well, we have made sure that we celebrate and commemorate our cultural and heritage events annually. We make sure that both young and old promote the language and gather during this annual events. And then that has maintained and has made sure that the language that I'm speaking isiNdebele has not died. Mind you, I grew up in one of the provinces of South Africa, which is Tswana dominant. was taught Istswana from grade 1 to grade 12. But what kept my language from not dying is because our parents at home taught us to speak in Isindebele. I did not know how to write Isindebele. I did not know how to read, but I made sure that I kept that interest. Even today, I'm making sure that my children, I address them in Isindebele. Whenever we are together sitting in the house, I switch on the radio station that talks Isindebele, so that at least they could learn. Because where I'm staying in Johannesburg, there is no Isindebele school, but I'm making sure that at least they know that at home the medium of instruction is Isindebele. So it's a challenge though. But what I'm happy about as well is that our government has made sure that in the provinces where there is many of us, like your Gauteng, around Pretoria, Mpumalanga, and Limpopo, the local schools they teach in Isindebele. They teach Isindebele as a subject from elementary grades, which I think is keeping our language going forth. And despite all the challenges, Amandebele or Isindebele language is maintained and preserved and is being promoted. Like I was saying, on our radio station, there's dramas. I've also seen some producers who have been producing movie Isindebele, and one of our ambassador of the language of Isindebele, it's a very colorful lady called Dr. Esther Mashango. She has been one of the custodians of this language. She's old, but her paintings are known all over the world. She has painted BMW. She has done a lot of artwork. And it's very interesting, and because it keeps the language going, and it creates a lot of interest around the language. So as the custodian or the ambassador of the language, Dr. Esther has also received a lot of accolades and awards from United Nations, from France, from the US, and she has kept the language. We, however, are a bit worried as we talk with my peers that she could not be the only one who's leading the way of promoting the language, especially on the international platform. That she has done well. The government has recognized her as well, has recognized her work. So that makes the language, that makes our language to be one of the interesting, our culture, the way we do the beats, the way we do the wall paintings, it's very unique. It is only, I guess, in the SADC region who've got that colorful or that skill of art and culture. Therefore, we really could not separate. One cannot separate the language from the culture, because the more you understand the language, is the more you understand the culture as well. So it is very different. I've just heard some very sad story about one of the guys they were saying in their country, maybe it's Cameroon or Chad, people don't speak in their mother tongues, they only speak French. Fortunate enough, maybe let me say in South Africa, we all the languages have been given an equal platform, though there's two dominant sort of the so-called economic languages, which is Afrikaans and English. However, with the resources and the platforms that the government is giving to our languages, we guess with time we will reach a certain level. We will also reach an economic level, because we have realized that our art and our culture can create the economy. as I've mentioned, that we've also realized that it is not, we should not look down upon our languages, because we've been told too many languages cannot serve the purpose of economic growth, and African languages are not economic languages. So there's a lot of myth around our languages. But however, I'm happy that at this stage we are moving in preserving and promoting our languages. So I would say lastly, I would really appreciate if my language in particular could move into big townships like Soweto and other townships around Pretoria and Johannesburg, because these big townships in this country are dominated by isiZulu and Sesotho, maybe and Xhosa. So all the minority languages are not given that fair platform. However, it is up to us, especially the younger generation, to push and advise and advance our languages, approach the relevant stakeholders, be it private or government, and show them the importance that we are living in cosmopolitan cities. Therefore, all the languages should be given the equal platform. So I would say with all the challenges that the minority languages face, we have managed as a nation. We have managed not only to focus in Pretoria, which is our own province, and in Mpumalanga, but to also create that interest in our language and culture. However, as people get learned, they move into bigger cities, and there's a tendency of being swallowed, your language being swallowed by the big languages, because isiNdebele is much closer to isiZulu. So if people don't find isiNdebele schools wherever they move in because of opportunities, it is easy for them to enroll their children at school to study isiZulu than the mother tongue. But I guess with time we will win that battle. We will have our languages in the belly being given that platform of being taught in the bigger cities like Johannesburg and Pretoria. So and one of my what we have realized as well is that as much as we are trying to have radio stations and news bulletin on national TV like SABC, there's a challenge that the authors and the publishers are not interested in our languages, especially my minority languages in the bed, because according to them, it does not make economic sense. Our people do not have disposable income, and mostly they are skilled in the peripheries of the country. But I still believe that with a literature of when the publishers could start to publish in our language, the literature does not get stale. We will keep on promoting and preserving our language. Thanks, Diane.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Andres. That was very rich. Thank you so much for highlighting how the Ndebele language has been able to survive through adversity, if I might put it this way, through the power of media, through the power of, through the use of culture and fashion with Dr. Esther, through the teaching, and also thank you for highlighting how the Ndebele culture and the language has been able to go international. And thank you for your vision of foreseeing the Ndebele language take over and grow further into the mind of the youth. Then, because we do not have much time, we will have to jump straight into the next panel is, can I please call upon our dear colleague and friend, Favor. Are you online, Favor?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Welcome, Favor. Favor is a medical undergraduate, writer, editor, language tutor, and translator, and she'll be speaking about the benefits of being a polyglot. Thank you so much, Favor. You have about 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Favor. You can go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, Chisim Budu. I'm from Nigeria. Yeah, and I speak Igbo and two other two other African languages. That's Shona of the Zimbabwean and Swahili of the Kenyans. And I also speak 4 foreign languages too: Korean, Spanish, Indonesian, and Filipino without stepping out of the country. And I'm currently learning Japanese, Chinese, German, and French. So yeah, being a polyglot, I wasn't born a polyglot. Neither have I left the country Nigeria for once. No, I haven't. I've been in Nigeria since I was born. I was born in Nigeria, and I've always lived in Nigeria. But you know, I've always loved languages. I've always loved languages so much that I had to start learning languages since I was in junior high school. I started learning languages then, and I've gotten lots of things. There are many benefits of being a polyglot. You know, people like you, people love to relate with you. I've gotten a lot of things. There was a competition I went for, and I got it, but it was meant to be self-funded. But I spoke to them in Indonesia, and it was fully funded. They agreed to fund my trip to Bangkok, Thailand. But I didn't go because I had an exam and I didn't go back. So here in Nigeria, we don't value language Igbo. We don't like, it's not like we don't value it, but when you try talking with somebody in Igbo, you find out that they don't like to respond because they feel that it's inferior. It makes them feel inferior. It makes them feel somehow. They prefer speaking English to Igbo. But at some point, I had to think, and I found out that it's better to speak Igbo. But you know what? Things that can be done to promote this language Igbo is that we can because in the university here in university, I study at the University of Nigeria, and here we study English. It's a compulsory subject. It's a compulsory subject. We all study English. If our language is being mandatory in schools, I think people will be able to speak their languages, because here you can see, here in school, you can see a Nigerian that can't speak Igbo, can't speak Yoruba. Maybe she might be a Yoruba, but she can't speak Yoruba. It doesn't make sense. People think it's dope. People think it's beautiful. People think it sounds so tush, but it isn't, because you can't speak your language, you can't defend yourself, you can't knowing anything about your culture is all nonsense. Because for you to be able to learn other people's language, you must be able to know your own language, which is the main and your only priority. And the only way that we can preserve our languages is to make it mandatory in all schools, both secondary, primary, and tertiary institutions. Because we have foreign movies here. If our local movies can be avoided by, like, we can watch our own movies instead of watching other foreign movies. If we love our movies and promote our movies tend to instill more knowledge on language learners. Like for us, while learning language, they tell us we have to read your books. We have to have many language books, because it's going to give you the opportunity to be able to understand. You can't be fluent in any language without reading books. So books should be given to people. Same thing with materials too, because we here, we lack materials. And you can't learn language without having any resources. No, you have to have resources, both audio CDs, books. You have to be mandatory in schools and all that. It will help us to be fluent in our language. We also as indigenous of many countries also should promote our language. We should be proud of our language. We should always stand for our culture, because that's the main thing. People okay, when I was with her, she was like, oh, ma'am, she doesn't like her children speaking Igbo. She tells them, don't speak Igbo, some people will look down on you. Don't speak Igbo, some people won't think that you are a village girl. You know, we take Igbo as being you being inferior, you being a local person. But I can speak Igbo, and my Igbo is so sweet, like very, very, very sweet. So that's just it. If we are able to believe in ourselves, promote our language, we'll certainly do very, very well. Other countries too, they don't even speak. Okay, I was talking to a Zimbabwean woman. She wasn't really proud of her country. She was like, let's speak English. I was like, but you speak Shona, right? She said, yeah, she speaks Shona. I was like, let's speak Shona. She said no, that she would like to speak English because she isn't proud of her language, which isn't good at all. It isn't good for you not to be proud of your language. You don't think your language is good. You can make it good. If you're not making it good, if you're not doing it well, you can make it well. It's just that we all Africans, we're just lagging behind, and it's really affecting us because our language are all dying. So since this topic is out, the ways to preserve our African languages, if it's being made open to students, everyone, I think that we all begin to preserve our language, begin to take it as being as a superior language. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Favor. That was very good. Thank you so much for reminding us that we should be proud of our languages and that we should really, really look into having like a very serious mind shift when it comes to the perception of our languages, and that we shouldn't be scared of promoting it and speaking it, especially. Thank you so much to all our panelists. May I please tell all our participants that you officially have the floor. Because for the sake of time, we will only take about 3 questions. Yes, so that we can engage more on those questions. Thank you so much. Do I have anyone? You may raise your hand or indicate in the chat if you have any questions.
Hello.
Hello, yes.
Okay, my name is Kifilwe Malusi. I am from Botswana.
Hello, Kifilwe.
I think this is a very interesting a session, and I think we should have a repeat of this interesting session. My children now live in South Africa, whereby they are taught Zulu and Afrikaans. And I feel like, when are they going to learn my language, which is Tswana? But I know because I live in South Africa, so we don't have a choice but for them to actually learn Zulu at the school. But however, I know there are a few schools that are also teaching Sotho, and I think Sotho is actually closer to Setswana. So my question is that, how do we infuse the Bantu languages in our education curriculum, no matter where you are in Africa? How do we instill the Bantu language so that even if I have to go to, say, Ghana, for example, I know there should be a school that can also teach Bantu language, so then my children will not actually suffer the issue of language as they grow up in the year of learning. Over.
Thank you. May I ask amongst our panelists who would like to reply to this one? I'm thinking maybe, and hello?
Although I'm not on the panel, but can I respond to it?
Yes, yes, definitely.
Like I said before, the issue is alienation. We don't want to get alienated, but the Indo-Europeans, okay, now you would say, how many languages do you think they have in Europe? Anybody? You can just guess. there's about 360 languages in Europe, but not all of them have the same type of power in terms of their use and access by a lot of people. So most of these South African languages and African languages are all related. The important thing is that if we don't want to get alienated, if me, as a, say I'm a Fulani guy and I speak Yoruba all my life, the important thing is that at least I have one African language that connects me to the African continent. So the important thing is, one, to first of all have access to, you have to be able to have one access to the African languages so that you don't get alienated because no matter what you do in foreign languages, the Swana and Zulu are all in the same language family, and there's even a bigger language family, which is African, ancient Egyptian and modern African languages. And that's where all modern African languages belong based on Obenge's classification. There are other languages that are located on the African continent because of one is Berber is on his own group, and the other one is Semitic languages, which is spoken mainly in Ethiopia area, and also Arabic is one of also Semitic language. And also the last one in the language family is the Khoisan. There's still a lot to be done with, on that, comparing it to ancient Egyptian. For now, our knowledge in this area is a little bit limited. So as a result of that, Obenge put that language in his own group. So with respect to African language family, all the modern African languages and ancient Egyptian languages are related. So if someone is speaking French and English, because French and English belong to the same universe in terms of Indo-European languages. So that person doesn't get alienated. But in terms of trying to teach your children a version of the your own Swana, you should try to look for materials maybe in Botswana and also on the internet, and try to form some kind of alliance with other people. And with that, I think whatever there's a will, anything that we love can be saved. So if you want your kids to learn Swana, they can learn it, because people are learning it. I was a language coordinator in Michigan State, and we offer Swana we've offered that languages. So if people as far as United States can learn Swana, so you are on the African continent in South Africa there, I don't think it's any problem getting opportunity to learn the language. You have to just be determined. Sorry, I was kind of long-winded, but.
No, thank you, Dr. Salo. That was really good. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, I have to announce to all of you participants and panelists that our time has exhausted. But what I would suggest is that being an African in Africa has platform as a platform is on Twitter and on Instagram. You could always follow the page, and we could perhaps also take this conversation online through the social media platforms. So please feel free. We'll share maybe, may I ask maybe one just to share with everyone the handles for the Twitter page and the Instagram page. And you shall feel free to also maybe engage on those platforms. I just wanted to thank you, Prof. Ojo, once again for making time for this, and to all the panelists. And I would like to apologize to everyone for going over time, but I think it was very important for us to gather today and discuss those issues. And hopefully we will be able to connect again very soon. And I would like to thank you for the platform who brought us here today, BAIAfrica in Africa. And also Mwanja, who is handling everything in the background. Thank you so much. And yes, I hope you guys have a very enjoyable weekend ahead. Thank you.